Get ready for our 15th feature film, which is going to be our most beer-themed feature yet, and also goblins.
Goblin time! Goblin time! Welcome back. If you're returning, if this is your first time here, welcome, a double welcome, as is tradition. I am Harrison. This is John. Almost switched those up. It's a little late here. You're watching Brewery, that movie. We're listening to it. We're so happy you're here. This is Feature Week here at Beer Me That Movie. So this is our 15th feature we're going to do today. If you're new to the game, we kind of alternate episodes. One week we'll do what we call the Fast Five, listen to a bunch of beers, find a bunch of beers, riff on some movie ideas, then pick one, and the next week release that movie as a feature. So here we are doing that after a successful Fast Five last week. A lot of fun, goofy, zany beers as always, but we landed on Cone Goblin it's actually collab, Ghost Town Brewing and Alvarado Street Brewery. So they got together, made this rad beer that has a hilarious logo with a Powder Jones like looking Cone Goblin on it. And so now John and I are going to attempt to expand on the riff we did in the Fast Five last week and turn Cone Goblin somehow into a movie that's compelling, interesting, sad, happy, definitely full of accents. We don't have a ton. Actually, I guess we did a pretty good job feeling this one out as we went in the Fast Five with it, but we're going to finish it up and add a bunch of goofy things today to it. Right, John?
That's the plan. Again, no preparation here.
That's right.
But so yeah, the main if you pick this movie up on VHS, which is probably where it would get released, Betamax, and you flipped it over to the back after you looked at the dope cover art, you would see the description being something along the lines of a small mid-size American craft brewery discovers some zany mishaps happening in the brew house around the same time that their new foreign brewer arrives, and they try and figure out what's happening with the Cone Goblin. I'm not the one who writes it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's marketing does that. They're a bunch of drunks. We're here in the trenches actually making movies or making movie ideas.
And one of the reasons movies are so cool is because you don't get a stupid commercial every 6 minutes.
That's right.
And just like this podcast, you're not going to get a stupid commercial telling you to sleep on a better mattress or buy a meal online and then cook it at your house.
Yeah, that's right. Sleep on the ground and eat dirt for all we care. You do you. We're not going to sell you jack.
Live happily, and if you are happy, hit that subscribe button. I don't even know why I say that.
You all know how the internet works.
Hit the subscribe button. It's good for us, and things that are good for us are good for you, so that's right. We keep making this podcast because it's a lot of fun.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and which I always thought gander. When I say gander, I imagine a goose with dandruff for some reason, like a gandruff. I don't know. That's just me.
Is that just the boy goose?
It's the boy goose, a gander.
Who's the gander?
Is that a bunch of geese?
Are we the gander, or
I think they're the gander, and we're the
lucky
goose.
Sons of guns.
Let us know if you feel ganderish today.
It's better than being a goose.
Or being goose,
just chasing people around all day, pissed off all the time.
You got a long
fly again.
Right, my neck hurts. Always hurts. Too long. Okay, enough goose jokes. I know we try to cut down on those. There's so many. Let's get into this movie. Let's talk about goblins, Cone Goblins to be specific. But really, before we even get there to this mischievous, creepy kind of gremlin-like thing that we're gonna have a lot of fun with, we got to kind of talk about the brewery, the people inside it, what they're kind of doing. We alluded to this a bit in the Fast Five. This is kind of like a hype brewery that maybe got a little too high on their own hype, and were forgetting their duties and their cleaning responsibilities, and that might have summoned this Cone Goblin. But let's kind of start there, John. Talk about who we're who's the cast? Who are we following through this story with, and what we're thinking?
Yeah, so no one watches a movie anymore without checking out a YouTube review and spoiling the whole thing first. So we can give you that a little lay of the land here. So this Hype Brewery,
yes,
which if you are in the beer scene, you're probably familiar with that term.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be something years ago, like The Alchemist making Heady Topper, or Russian River making Pliny, or nowadays it's very common to have one of those breweries that you just wait in line for to spend $38 on 4 beers. So that's kind of the brewery that we're looking at here. These guys are going to brew under the name Haze Craze Brewing.
Ooh, Haze Craze.
Which, if you are a Hype Brewery, that's probably one you thought of before.
Right on the nose.
Yet really hitting it home. They're known city and probably even statewide. They self-distribute. They make those wild, zany, like the beer we drank with tomato and mayonnaise. And
I love it.
They make very weird
pumpkin milkshake IPAs, peanut butter and toffee banana stouts. And
when you sit down for Thanksgiving and your uncle's like, I just don't understand why they have to put all these crazy things in beer. They're freaking delicious, man. You want to try one?
Right, exactly.
So this is the type of brewery that we're dealing with, and they've got big goals. They've got an older gentleman that's kind of running the brewery. He's done most of his own investing. He brewed and he set this thing up, and he tasted it. He suckled the sweet teat of success by getting some good write-ups.
Okay, I like that.
Craft Brewing Magazine wrote an article praising on his ability to combine New Zealand hops with West Coast hops.
Great.
And create peach flavor like we've never tasted before.
That's right, like liquid candy.
He's chasing that. He's chasing that unicorn. He's chasing that white horse. He's got a couple people brewing for him. We'll focus mostly on Hope, his assistant brewer.
Okay,
she's a little zany. She's a little wild, and Tom, his formal name, although most of the time we call him like Captain Clean.
Yeah, the Clean Machine.
Mr. Vicious.
Fun Police.
Fun Police. Tom is our type A personality running the brewery. Hope is the opposite. She's the whimsical hope of this brewery, and she often is the one helping come up with some of these like mango jalapeno combinations.
Yes, exactly. A lot of times with her own garden, some of these crazy ingredients. She makes her own socks. She hasn't cut her hair in 15 years. She'll tattoo you if you want, or if you don't want.
Kind of dreadlocks. It might just be unwashed. We're not really sure.
Yeah, neither is Hope, but she doesn't care. Hope's a free spirit. Hope spends a lot of time on message boards with old retired Navy people talking about UFOs they saw in the water 50 years ago.
I love it. Hope's a little conspircy driven.
I like Hope.
Maybe not quite the 9/11 type, but
no, she does the fun stuff most of the time.
Yeah, if I plant my zucchini flowers towards the north,
that's it.
The visitors come by.
Got a lot of as many crystals in her garden as plants. Yeah. You see.
Everyone knows Hope.
Hope's great. Don't stand too close to Hope, but Hope's awesome. And you're right, kind of exact opposite of Tom, who maybe he did have like a more traditional brewing background. Now he's doing his own thing, feels free, but still has that type of personality. He's kind of a hard ass sometimes, maybe demands a lot from his team, thinks he runs a pretty tight ship, but they're all kind of getting swept up in the press. The tap room's full of people, a lot of buzz. It's exciting. They're kind of seeing their dreams take off, and they're all, can't really fault them for maybe getting a little carried away in the magic of the moment as well, but I think that's going to come with a bit of a cost that may summon this Cone Goblin.
True, there has to be a Cone Goblin somewhere in this movie, and it's not just like what did Sierra Nevada invented the torpedo brewing, and other people have invented things to help influence beer. This Cone Goblin is a real dirty creature. Think daytime rabid raccoon.
Yes.
Think goblin. And then pour a New England IPA on them and mix them together. Yes, that's our
right.
creature here.
That's right. Climbing around, being creepy, which it hasn't even shown up yet. I mean, again, things are in happy la la land at the brewery right now, but I think that'd be maybe and that's probably how the movie starts, is cheersing, another successful release. My gosh, we made more money this weekend than last weekend. Is they're maybe cleaning up after a busy night in the tap room and saying goodbye to some regulars stumbling home. And
because this is an independent brewery. We don't have infinite money. This is basically a restaurant,
right?
Like budgetary. They might have one or two regular people that work in the tap room. And I like your point. Like they're not lazy, but their beer has been doing their marketing and bringing people in.
Yeah.
And they're striving for, I know you're not a huge fan of this, but can we say that Tom's got it in his head that the next step for them is to win a Great American Beer Fest medal for the brewery, put them on a national stage, get the recognition. It's kind of like winning an Oscar for your brewery. So that'll bring people further from out of state.
Right. And maybe even as he overhears the conversation in the tap room, as everything's going great and people are happily smiling, drinking beer, cheersing, having a blast. Overhears one conversation of some uber hipster folks who are, drinking the one Pilsner they have on tap, saying, yeah, I guess this stuff's good, but he'll never win a Great American Beer Festival. They don't pay attention to this kind of stuff. This is all fad. This will all fade away.
Can't make a good Pilsner. I don't trust you.
Right, exactly. So it's a tiny little blemish that Tom, again, being type A, and this is his passion project, can't get out of his mind. It's ringing around in his head, this conversation he overheard, and kind of raining on this parade a little bit. So right now that hatches the idea of, like, they say I can't do that, I can do anything. I'm Mr. Clean. I'm the fun police.
And where do you get, maybe Tom's background comes, he's born and raised American brewer.
Right.
Where do you go for the purest of the pure, but Lagerschtaan?
Lagerschtaan. Of course, the well-known international home of the Lagerschtaan. Lagers and camels, what they're known for.
The cigarettes, not the animals.
Can't make you right. It's a lot of cigarettes to make good lager.
Joe Cool.
You had to come from somewhere. So, okay. All right. I like that. So perhaps, right, that's hatched this idea of, like, all right, if I'm going to be the best, I got to find the best. I got to hire someone from Lagerschtaan. So maybe that's happening. That plan is being hatched in Tom's mind. I guess they're shutting down the brewery, and maybe we also meet in hopes they're helping out Lenny, the brewery cat, meowing, jumping around, scaring the mice away. So things are still 99.999% great, but it sent Tom down this path of, I'm going to get on Craigslist, YouTube, beerjobs.com, whatever. Yep. I got to find someone's got to be out of work in Lagerschtaan. Might want to come to the U.S. Let's see if this is worth it. Let's see if I can find someone who can maybe help us reach this goal and prove that we're not just making peanut butter sandwich beers, but we can make a great classic beer too.
So now seems like a good time to introduce not the Cone Goblin, because you don't just start with banging, right?
There should be some high-fiving.
Yeah. At least do you need a ride home? You look pretty drunk. So what we open on this beautiful scene, new beer release. Things are going marvelous at the brewery. Tom's got this new bug where he's like, you know what, we do have to make a perfect lager or something like that. It's going to impress the purists. What can we introduce now, Harrison, that's going to kind of set us down a path where we just turn from this beautiful brewery?
What can we introduce? Well, we should introduce. I mean, I think So, right, the next day, let's say they come in, and stop me if I'm going down a different path. Maybe so I think another important thing, we kind of mentioned it, but let's call it out specifically, is the dirty tanks, right? So, like, they're in the tap room closing down that night, but maybe the last shot is Lenny walking by a drippy fermenter. There's just kind of some brewing muck on the ground that should have been hosed in the trench drain, but it's sitting there getting crusty and gross. And right in the background, Hope and Tom and the crew are laughing, counting their shekels, and and Lenny's hunting for dinner. And so maybe the next day, this is where it all begins. They come in and there's a weird smell in the air. It's quiet. Maybe they open the door and like 5 mice run out. They're like, "What the hell? What's Lenny doing? Like, what's sleeping on the job?"
There's another cat.
Another cat to keep Lenny in line. Maybe a dog. So. And maybe Tom discovers this, but walks back towards the cellar, and there, laying like sprawled out, gonna kind of like William Wallace, is Lenny the cat, dead, covered in a bunch of hop dust. It's a gross scene, clearly depraved, disgusting, and Tom is like, "Holy crap!"
I love that you brought that to the feature. You mentioned it, I think, in the Fast Five.
Yes.
So
it's happening.
I'm glad you followed that setup.
Yep, Lenny doesn't last long in this movie.
And I think so. This right now, if you're watching, you're like, I came to the wrong movie. I didn't sign up for this. So this is a good opportunity to bring back your Crystal Girl Hope. Who can hopefully add a little bit of brevity to this situation by instantly coming with like, "Yep, this is very typical visitor sacrifice."
Yep, exactly.
They do it with my zucchini every year.
Surgical,
longer than precision. 2 inches. This is exactly something they would do. I've seen, and she starts like taking a couple of photos,
get these online and have an answer, and
put them on the message board. I got a guy that was a naval pilot. They'll be able to analyze this.
Right, Harold the cow farmer. He's seen this a million times with cows.
Could be government too. Could be government. They love controlling alcohol.
Exactly. And Tom is just like, "Hope, get washed up, get ready to work. It's none of that stuff. I'm calling the cops. It's probably some bored kid, maybe some drunk, a dog.
We're really busy last night, so we could have came back here. Weirdo.
Right. Who locked up?
Probably those people that said I couldn't make a Pilsner.
Right. Probably them. Maybe he does vilify them immediately, just because they're fresh in his mind. So Tom jumps to logic. Hope jumps to the moon. But they've got like stuff to do. So it's very sad. Maybe they have a small cops come. Yep, that's a dead cat, and they can't really do.
You got security footage or anything?
That wasn't working last night, or we can't afford it. Or,
we don't watch the back.
Right. Well, that's real dumb. You should install more cameras. And they get a lesson from the cops there. They can't do much with the dead cat though. But so have a small ceremony for Lenny. Goodbye, Lenny. And maybe maybe the one thing Tom and Hope kind of pause on and agree on is like, why was there like hot powder all over the place? Like, that's kind of weird. It almost felt like someone's trying to send us a message, and Tom tries to quell that with like, no, like, come on, it was weird, but again, drunks, bored kids, I don't know, some sicko, we'll just get new locks and put a new camera in, and that'll be that. So they move past it. Sadly, Lenny's gone, but again, Gabfa's coming up, they've got things to do, and maybe also like at this point we have Tom kind of set in motion his new hire. So maybe he did have luck, get some email back that morning. "Oh, someone's interested in the job. He comes from Lagerschtaan." Great. Like, and he can start tomorrow or whatever. So that begins too. So so we've got some sad Lenny news, but the show must go on, as they say.
True. And in this case, it seems like we're careening down a path of this hype haze brewery.
Yes.
Now trying to refocus and make a beer for your grandfather,
right?
Or me, really.
Yeah.
Like trying to make a beer for the people that want to have more than two.
Yes.
So Tom's got it in his head. This new employee that's responded via email. He's recently unemployed. He's got brewing background. Tom's in love with his resume.
Yeah.
Is that what they call it in the brewing world? Is it a resume?
Yeah, it's still a resume. It is still a resume.
Malt sheet.
I wish it would be cool like that. And maybe like Klaus is already in the United States for some reason. Like, it sounds like he's already here. I guess he left his job a couple weeks ago in Lagerschtaan, and he's touring the U.S. So he could start tomorrow. We're in luck. Like, everything is going our way. Like, again, Lenny, that conversation last night with those bozos in the bar, that was just little speed bumps. We're cruising to gold and to glory.
Hope's all excited. She can check conspiracy theories with this.
Right, exactly. Talk about
what
kind of crystals do you have?
Republic. Yeah.
Different rocks over there in Lagerschtaan.
I hope he's brought some with him.
I'm sure he has.
I'm gonna check his palms as soon as
I love this.
And this guy's name is, have we named him
I
yet?
think we said Klaus in the Fast Five. If not, in my mind, it's Klaus.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Klaus from Lagerschtaan. It's me, Klaus. And so Klaus shows up like not like a bat out of hell, but like maybe he just kind of arrives there. I mean, he certainly does, but they say kind of next day, maybe he shows up that night at midnight or something, and is walking in as again they're shutting down, and we're all
he's drinking.
Right.
He's in. There's a man in the tap room. I will have a milk pour of your finest pilsner. And the tap room manager,
right.
We got a weird dude out here. He sounds like he's from overseas.
Asking for milk.
He's been drinking, and then finally, when he goes to close his tap, they see his name's Klaus.
Right.
And that could, I don't know why I went down that path.
I like that. No, he's been sitting in there kind of maybe surveying and then has some Lagerschtaan wisdom of, yes, busy place you have here. It is me, Klaus. Yes, it is I. Klaus from the email, the internet. I mean, from Lagerschtaan. Yes, it is I have arrived. Klaus is here. And right, always talks about himself in the third person.
Yes.
Naturally. And maybe he wears a cape. I see him with a cape, and he's got one of those yodel hats on for some reason.
Yeah, don't think like Superman cape, right. But think like like opera conductor cape or something. Like it doesn't go much down past like the middle of his back.
Yes. But he acts like it covers his whole body, right? Like he's wearing a duster, but definitely doesn't. He kind of just looks ridiculous. So I see Klaus so clearly. And so he's there. He's standing in the brewery, and Tom's a little flustered but excited, and Hope immediately starts smelling him for some reason, which doesn't alarm Klaus. Hope's just doing Hope stuff, and he, can I have a tour? I am.
Show me the brew house. You are the brewer without your capelet on.
Right. He wants to jump right in. He's still on Lagerschtaan time, even though he's been in the U.S. for a little bit. He's ready to go. And Tom's like, oh, yeah, let's go this way. And so I like that. And maybe they walk back there, and like where Lenny died, it's cleaned up, but it's still like it's a scene a bit maybe. And maybe Klaus, they're looking at the brew house, the tanks. What is this in this one? That's a peanut butter sour. Mm-hmm. And the next.
Oh, that's our mango pineapple habanero IPA.
Yes, and the next.
This is dirty.
Right. What am I looking at on the floor here? And that's a good point too. Maybe he's a new set of eyes. Looking at overworked Tom and Hope's workplace, and it's a filth here. The trench stains. I see fruit flies. I see the tube. Too much of this. No, I will take off my dusty browns and put on my Sunday shoes. Whatever that means. It's an old Lagerschtaan.
Yeah.
Saying, if you
no wonder you have no capelets. This is a pigsty. A Schordenhosen.
Right, which you never want to be called a short nose.
Not in Lagerstrom.
Right. It's one step from being thrown in the camel pens, which is where they again just keep all the cigarettes.
Yeah, all the wet ones that couldn't be put into a pack.
Almost made it. Okay, so Klaus is under impressed, and Tom is flustered, probably a little bit upset, but it's getting late, so Klaus says, tomorrow's a new day. I will be here at the crack of dawn. They're like, oh, okay, sure. We're happy to have you, Klaus. Excited to learn from you, get to work. And maybe we can do this that night or the next morning when he discovers Lenny's kind of crime scene and we dive into the goblin. Maybe we do that the next morning. There's lots happening tonight with Klaus. We need to...
I think... So Klaus is introduced, and he points at some of the things we might have just seen, been shown, but not really told. Klaus is here telling us, like, this place is dirty. It's pretty apparent that he takes the Adjunct heavy beers as an affront to real beers.
For sure.
But he knows he knows from email and talking to Tom, he's been brought here to start brewing pure beer for the masses, to show America the real light, as Klaus would probably phrase it.
Yes.
And I think upon his first day, he's like, all right, he's looking at the malt. Oh, you get some of this isn't very good. So this is the malt that you use to make your beers. This is 4-row barley. This is not even real barley. So he's like, he's turning up some things that are wrong.
Yes.
And he goes to some of the fermenters to pour some samples, right? You do that
carefully.
This taste of with some off flavors,
buttered popcorn,
yes,
green apple,
yes. These are all bad things he's pointing out,
right?
In some of, not maybe the adjunct beers, but in some of the cleaner beers, he's pointing out all these things that are wrong. And Hope tastes, and she's like, "Oh my god, it wasn't like that."
Right, and they're kind of flustered, looking at the brew logs. What happened? Look, the temperature probe was turned up last night. Who did this? Like, this, what the heck? What happened here? And Tom's like, Klaus, this doesn't happen. This has never happened before. Something's wrong with the solenoid valve. Yes, I see that as well. The lack of maintenance. It catches up quickly. Discipline. You must always be looking, always be watching. No sleep.
We start to, as the audience, get a picture of why this film is called Cone Goblin.
Right.
Through the eyes of our protagonist, it's unclean. It's using unclean ingredients in your beer through the eyes of Klaus.
Yeah.
But it's also a lack of maintenance, as you said. So we start to see some of the side effects of this, and I think during this third set of eyes on things, it's a good opportunity again for Hope to come with maybe some of her beliefs to what might be causing this behavior. Mercury in retrograde.
Yep. It's the eclipse season, classic eclipse season stuff. That's all, Tom. Well, it'll shake itself out. He's like, it's not going to shake itself out. We're going to fix it. If this is a mechanical problem, we'll fix it. If it's something else, we'll fix it. Right. So Tom's blowing that off. Hope's trying to solve some things, and maybe Klaus keeps poking around and notices that they're both clearly disturbed because the solenoid valve's off, and maybe like trying to transfer something and a pump breaks, or the keg machine goes on the fritz and fires a keg into the wall. Like, all these things are happening kind of
a real thing. Holy crap.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. It could definitely fire the spire inside it if it's a bad keg and launch that like a missile. If it's falling apart, which I saw happen once. Anyway, so lots of memories, lots of ways to die in a brewery. That was my job, to make sure people didn't. And so lots of stuff is going wrong, and Klaus picks up from like the way that Tom and Hope are talking, like this probably, even though he's it's clear that like this is not normal. This is something new. These aren't just a bunch of ragtag bums. Like something's going on, and his like kind of brewer sense starts to perk up a little bit, and he's like, wait, quiet, everybody, quiet. And he starts sniffing around maybe, and he's, I saw something last night over here by the coolers. And they go to the word Lenny died, and there's like an outline of a cat maybe, and then like some lupulin powder, some pop dust all over the place. And Klaus just looks down and stands up and goes, what is this? Oh, our cat, something happened, the local kids or whatever, and Hope hops in, or aliens, probably local kids though, Klaus. They killed our cat, our brewery cat. And Klaus goes, you know this? Yeah, the cat was dead. We saw the dead cat. No, the kids, you know? You have film? No, I just, what else?
Cop said it was probably kids.
So they're kind of trying to write it off still. And Klaus is kind of freezing and looking around and going, the valves, the keg machine, the transfer, and a dead cat. When did the cat die? And like, about 2 nights ago. And before that, any issues? No, now that you mention it, but that hasn't happened. Hope's like, oh my God, it's all connected. And Tom's like, Hope, shut up. It's definitely not. And Klaus is like, you may be more right than you know, Miss Hope. Now he's a Bond villain.
I love Klaus.
But and he starts kind of drumming his chin a little bit, Klaus does, and it goes a bit quiet, and Tom's like, what is it? Klaus says nothing. Hope's like, oh yeah, what is it? And then Klaus is like, it can't be. And I don't know, does he reveal now that like what a Cone Goblin is? Does he wait to see if something happens? Like, we have a decision to make here. If he lays it all out that goblins are real and they come to dirty breweries, or
I think I want Klaus to reveal the story.
Okay.
His in my country.
Yes.
We have a story of a creature which thrives on the dirty, unclean brew house. Which sometimes puts filthy ingredients in their beers and also leaves filthy mess behind. And this creature is called the Loopskemigler, which in America means Cone Goblin.
But in Lagerschtaan is Loopskemigler.
And he kind of like, he tells this old folks tale, not to necessarily say, I think you have a Cone Goblin. Tom hears, you're messy, you're dirty, this is why it's happening. Hope hears, fucking Loopskemigler? It's here. How do you spell that? Is it Lupch?
Like a chupacabra.
I need to put this in the board.
Small Bigfoot. Right. What are we talking about here? Metaphysical.
So that, and I think that might just allow for a little bit of, we don't have to elaborate on like how the whole scenes play out, but there's maybe a fast forward of a week that goes by at the brewery and another thing, and Hope asks, I tried to Google in Loopskemigler. You might try Cone Goblin, but it is of course not real.
Right. Deterring her, and also was like, I will know more about anyone. I have seen them. They were in my family's brewery once, not too long ago, and trails off mysteriously. So now Tom's like, this is ridiculous. Hope's like, this is awesome, and so obviously what's happening. But Klaus is again got a job to do. Great American Beer Festival's coming. So maybe Klaus is also like, or it could just be nothing. Could be coincidence. As he's becoming Russian.
That's probably my fault. Accents change over time.
It'll come back.
At least it's not Bayou Boy yet.
Right, not yet.
So I think probably in this shifting of perceptions, there's going to be a couple of pretty costly mistakes. Like in a big like triple IPA, double dry hop, a lot of money in these ingredients.
Yeah.
And this is a beer they make all the time. They release one like every week or so. They're cranking out a new haze. And this one just turns out awfully wrong. Like every way that you can measure a beer, it's just way not what they would have expected it to be.
Right.
And I think it's an event like this that causes, it's Tom that's going to have like a breakdown.
Okay.
And realize like, I can't even make the beer that put me on the map anymore.
Right. What happened?
Something is going on.
Right.
And I think Tom probably doesn't like his two information people. Hope is crazy.
Right.
And Klaus is from Lagerschtaan. Talking about Lipskemerg. He's like ruining his brewery. But I think he probably like he might even crack one open himself. And as they're breaking down for the night, he's like, Klaus, tell me what you know about this. Like Hope said you actually encountered something like this before.
Yes. And Klaus is like, and right, Klaus is sipping as well on who knows what, from some Underberg, or maybe he's having the one lager they do make right now. Sipping back on that with his cool half cape on, going, yes, it was a long time ago, but not too long, because I just said it wasn't too long. And we get a nice flashback of, maybe Klaus kind of encountering a shadowy goblin-like figure, and my family's brewery, it had been around for here we go. Went too far west there. We're in Japan for a moment. Yes, this is the brewery of my family for 500 years. And one day we try something new. The next morning, beer on the ground. I don't know why he's forgetting words. But anyway, Klaus continues this long-winded fun story, right? and tells Tom that, like, this is all, I've seen this before. We got careless. Cone Goblin showed up and ruined everything. And, they're hard to see, but, I only saw him once. That was all I needed to know. The Cone Goblin exists. So you saw him? Yes, up on the brew house. On the last day we ever brewed. He got into the brew house, and that was that. The next day, the power failed. The glycol failed. Everything failed. It fell apart almost into the sea.
Can you use the word kaput?
It went kaput. Yeah. It's in our lives. I haven't spoken to my family since. So, ruined this Cone Goblin creature, ruined Klaus's life, and we can kind of assume or infer that maybe that's why he came to the U.S. to get away. He didn't really have many other options. But so Tom is kind of, again, hard to make a straight edge guy who's doesn't believe in anything other than what he can see in front of him, believe any of this, but entertains the story while enjoying a beer. Because now he's kind of open to anything. His world's falling apart, like you said, stuff he's great at. Now he can't even brew the simplest toffee cake banana beer, and
I can't even brew a goddamn toffee cake banana bombshell bourbon barrel aged barley wine, old ale mixed with stout.
What's wrong with me? I like this. So
what did you do? Is it brewery is kaput? We failed. But has this ever happened? Is it really a goblin? I need answers to these questions, Klaus. My whole life is crumbling before me. And Klaus, I think, would outline, in some of my research, we have learned ways to mitigate, obviously keeping clean, not putting somewhat bullshit ingredients. And having the little trolls with the poof hair, putting those onto your fermenters, giving your fermenters good names like Michelangelo, Leonardo, Donatello are good to keep away the bad. So he probably outlines a couple of steps that I think a week ago Tom would have said, "You're fired, you're crazy, this is ridiculous," and now Tom's looking up little troll dolls,
or looking over to Hope and be like, "How many of those things do you have in your bag?" And she's like, "All of them." I have 20 trolls. I got a bunch of crystals, a bunch of herbs. So I like this. Yeah. So Tom's basically at this point, it's well, it won't hurt. I can't lose any more beer. Things are going backwards. We're losing time. Again, the Great American Beer Festival, the entries are due in 5 weeks. They got to make a lager to get in there. So like they don't have any. He doesn't have time to think about anything, believe or not believe anything. If this is a goblin, and it's scared by troll dolls, then we're putting troll dolls all over the place, and I like this. What kind of, and maybe Hope again is like, I'll do some more research. And Klaus is like, good luck with the research. There are no answers to this online. It is all in my head or my family's head. We're the only ones who have ever seen it. You hear nothing but hearsay on the internet.
I love that. Like, I want to be clear. No one suspects Klaus.
Sure.
Even though his family's the only one that's ever seen this. And now Klaus showed up and the Cone Goblin's here. But I mean it when I say, like, we don't suspect Klaus. He's helping us.
Yeah, absolutely. He's helping. He's giving the facts, Jack. He's sharing the little straps, and tips to catch this thing. So that's probably what like a fun next section of the movie will be, is a series of kind of like, okay, so what's the goblin attracted to? Attracted to hops, attracted to grain, like classic ingredients, attracted to dirty messes. So maybe they start trying to set up little traps for it. Granted, like they haven't seen it yet. Maybe they've heard it laughing or scratching or a flash here or there. But now we're gonna try and catch this thing that no one's really seen.
Klaus shows up with a cat in a bird cage. I bring the perfect bait.
Let me too. Right. Oh my God, where'd you get that cat?
Bring him, take him away, Klaus.
Right,
take him away.
He looks
much.
good. Yeah, and maybe the way, if we filmed it, we could even make it where like all you see are the traps failing, just a flash of nothing, or in the background out of focus, the net that's supposed to grab the goblin that's over the hops falls on nothing, and things like that. This goblin is constantly evading the camera, as well as Tom and Klaus and Hope, but there's enough evidence behind maybe some goblin tracks, maybe just a ripped up net here, ripped up box trap there, some consumed hop bags,
and the traps are like dirty mess things to attract him, and like a bag of hot pellets, maybe in a cage. Hope might even try like peanut butter and Oreo cookies and like some sweets that she used.
There we go.
And puts those off in a trap somewhere. Right. Basically, like if you had a mouse infestation, like they're trying everything.
Right, exactly. It's a big game of mouse trap or mouse hunt, whatever that game is, and but nothing is working. And they're kind of like, "Come on, Klaus! Like, what else? Like, what did you do?" And it's like, again, we failed. It went kaput. I'm telling you what almost worked. This is all I know, all there is to know. But Hope is a conspiracy theorist, and I think Hope is gonna kind of dig a little bit here, and maybe after 3 or 4 kind of failures, as well as more problems of the brewery, and maybe she even encounters one as she's like dry hopping a beer. She's looking at the beer at the top of the tank and sees the level start to drop, and looks down at the ground, and the bottom is open of the tank, and the beer's just blowing on the floor, and she sees just like hears like a pitter pattering of goblin feet as it zips away, like a big nose clogs, and she's like, "Oh my God, there it is!" But has to slide down and save the beer before she can chase the goblin. So it's just messing with him. But Hope is, again, she kind of sees herself as an outside of the box thinker, and wants to get to the bottom of this, because it's her name on the line too. She's involved in the brewery, all that stuff. So against Klaus's judgment, starts to maybe do some research herself, digging around, trying to learn more about just goblins in general, that sort of thing. Even though Klaus is like, "You must not worry about this. The goblin, we will catch the goblin. We will win together as team.
This time I will beat the goblin."
Right, exactly. And that's a good point too. Klaus is probably maybe feeling a little vengeful and a little like, this is personal, and I've seen these things before. And then Tom was just trying to keep his brain in his head. He's like, my business is going from the top to the bottom. I had the simple goal of trying to enter a contest that's not going to happen, and maybe I have a metaphysical creature in here for some reason that nobody knows how to get rid of. Like, what?
True. The local accounts can't buy his beer anymore because he hasn't been able to make any.
Right.
Things are looking really, really rough for Tom, and really for everyone in this brewery. I like you said, Hope kind of takes it upon herself to maybe look online and trying to discover some new techniques to tame, capture, kill this goblin. The beer festival's approaching. Every minute spent is a minute wasted.
Right.
They can't even produce a beer to make money.
Right. And maybe there could even be an intense kind of moment where Tom and Hope butt heads, and Hope's like, but none of this stuff that Klaus is telling us is working. And Tom's like, well, he's the one that knows. Like, you don't know any better. I know you think you know all these things nobody does, but you don't. It's just a bunch of nonsense online. Like, you're not helping. Let's just do what Klaus says. Keep brewing. Like, we'll get through this. This isn't a big deal. He's still a little bit in kind of denial land. Because it's just a hard thing to accept that maybe a goblin's ruining your business. But Hope is like, forget this. Like, I can't like work if you're gonna not listen to me, and maybe like leaves the brewery, storms out, and there's a big moment and that Klaus observes, and let her go, let her cool down, it will be fine. You know what to do, Tom. Stick to the plan.
The fair effects, they take time. They must process. They think with their feelings.
Right.
It's very weird.
It's very different than us. You and I, we are doers. Hope is a feeler. Okay, got it. Thanks, Klaus. Yeah, so now it's just Tom and Klaus and this goblin in the brewery as Hope is leaving. But meanwhile, Hope hasn't lost hope. She can't. She's just kind of maybe digging around, trying to learn more about goblins. And maybe she like discovers like a manuscript or an old tapestry or something from Lagerschtaan in like the basement of the oldest library in the city. And there's one book from Lagerschtaan we have from 1508. And it's all in old Lagerschtaanese.
But she recognizes the word,
right?
Schmageln.
Of course. How could she not? How could she
remember
forget
this?
It? Right. And she's like, maybe it says even just like a picture in there of like a little goblin creature, like next to like a couple humans and a bunch of flipped over barrels and stuff. And she's like, like it does exist. I know about it forever, but I can't read any of this. Like, what the heck do we do? And maybe there's like a few pictures maybe that helps her out with not reading Lagerschtaanese, and she's like, and those pictures show like the goblin getting closer to one human, or then getting thrown into a tank of like a barrel, and kind of next to the barrel or above the barrel is like let's say like a piece like something looks like an apple, and like what else could it be? Some kind of plant, maybe even like a old looking chocolate bar. I don't know, some interesting ingredients that Hope is like, what the heck is that doing there? Why is that way? But clearly in these few pictures, it's like the goblin was over here. It got put in this barrel with these mysterious ingredients in it, and that seems to have killed it. But she doesn't know what they are. She can't read anything. So now she's just even more frustrated. Like, I see maybe a potential solution in front of me. I can't read this language.
Yeah,
maybe
it's
it's
like at a cidery and they trapped him in a cider barrel.
Maybe that's what it is. Right, exactly. Like, this is useless. And takes the book, leaves. So that's happening as like, right, Tom and Klaus are like, what can we do? Like, we need a final trap, Klaus, that's going to really get it. And maybe they come up with like, let's use the tank. Use one of the tanks we have. We'll lure him in with the biggest piece of bait yet. An entire perfectly made
cryo hops.
Perfect cryo hops. They cannot stay away from the, I don't know what language this is now. Actually, this is now when it's happening. The cryo hops, it goes to them deep in their soul. The coldness like their heart and the cryo hop together. The goblin. And so
just how you say like crank. Methamphetamines.
That's it. You nailed it, Klaus. So now that's the final-ish maybe trap for this thing. Okay, so what happens now?
So Klaus and Tom back at the brewery decide they're going to throw it all, use the most expensive hop-related ingredient they can get their hands on, their biggest trap they can set, and they kind of hold back, maybe go up to Tom's office, and we'll try and watch through one of the new cameras they set to see what happens. And they see Hope walk in holding this old book.
Perfect. Yeah.
Downtrodden. She grabs a low fill can off of the back line and just cracks it open room temperature, and starts drinking it, pouring through this book, and you see slowly a shadowy figure start to approach Hope. It stops by the cryo hop trap, but it sees Hope drinking, and it approaches her. And on the camera, you see Hope and this short raccoon-looking goblin creature look like they're having a dialogue.
Right.
And the filmmaker in me wants to not reveal what's happening, but the human in me wants to know what they're talking about. So I think we cut inside to like Hope. Maybe the low fill, the beer she drank was like one of the infected or kind of like bad batch beers that the goblin previously messed with. It wasn't necessarily supposed to be drank, but it allows the goblin to approach her cautiously and actually have a conversation with her. And he starts talking about how, you stinky you are ruining this beer. You are putting your stinks in it, and you're not cleaning your messes. You're leaving this place so ruined with your stupid ideas. I will take this brewery and I will make everything in it will be mine. I am the Lupenstring. and Hope's kind of like, I know that phrase. But like, what are you talking about? You kind of sound like Klaus. Both in accent, because John sucks. And also the fact that you hate anything that isn't a freaking boring ass lager.
Right, exactly.
And Klaus and Hope can kind of have this little quick discourse where there's enough of a hint that that Klaus and the goblin are connected, but also that they both share a deep-seated hatred for beer that isn't brewed pure. Just simply hops, water, and malt. And perhaps yeast, although I don't think they knew that existed. So
it's goblin magic.
The magic is what makes the beer. The magic ferments the sugar into alcohol. No, this is the goblin speaking, not Klaus. Just wondering. But so Klaus shares this deep-seated hatred, and then help me, Harrison. Help me.
Yeah, so I like this. They were connecting kind of, the goblin and Klaus somehow, like, because they kind of sound like, hate the beer, sound kind of similar. And Pope has this weird half conversation and is kind of like, doesn't realize it's happening from this weird infected beer that the goblins got into. And like, obviously this is happening, like, Tom and Klaus see it on the screen and like run down, like, oh my God, the goblin's gonna eat Hope or attack Hope or whatever.
She'll end up like Lenny.
Right, exactly. We're minutes away from seeing Hope skewered on a table.
Then we won't call the cops.
So they like interrupt their conversation basically. But as you said, it's that Hope's kind of heard enough, and maybe she like passes out afterwards, or something happens to kind of slow everything down for a minute. And in her fever dream is kind of piecing together some things maybe that she saw of, like, the book in the library with the weird ingredients above the barrel and the drowning goblin and the goblin conversation of like, dirty stuff in the beer. No, you're ruining the beer. Whatever.
Yes,
you're dirt in the beer. The beer is pure, must be pure. And as all goblins love pure beer. What do you got?
So Klaus and Tom show up, heroes as they are, the men that think with their brains. and the goblin sees Klaus and recognizes him. Oh, dirty, stinky, filthy man from Lagerschtaan, ruining the beers.
Yep.
And he pulls out a little goblin knife, a little shiv. It's like a giant sharpened piece of barley.
Perfect.
Gigantic.
Love it.
And goes to start running towards Klaus, and Klaus yells at Tom, like, save yourself.
Yep.
And the goblins charging Tom, and let me know if this checks out. Hopefully I don't have to do a lot of editing. Hope wakes up after having that fever dream realization that Klaus hates adjuncts and beer.
Yes.
And the only reason you would hate adjuncts and beer is either you're a purist or there's something about them that you can't handle.
Right.
So she immediately starts running down the line of all the fermenters and just, I don't know what the phrase is, like popping the caps off so that like this like blueberry sour is mixing down the trough, and she's letting go like a mango IPA and a peanut butter milk stout, and all these crazy combinations are just flowing down and almost flooding the brewery and charging towards the Cone Goblin, who is also chasing Klaus to murder him.
Yes, I love this. So the goblin recognizes Klaus. Klaus is maybe even like kind of frozen in the moment as he sees the goblin, which is kind of weird. But as part of Hope's fever dream, she's remembering like, Klaus never drank the adjuncts, only the clean beer. Like, he's a brewer, he would want to know what's going on. Like, he works here. Like, that was weird. We should have noticed that was weird. She's piecing all the pieces of the puzzle together. They're like, something maybe supernatural, and this is where Hope's brain would go, is going on here. Influenced Klaus enough to not even touch the ingredients. He didn't even take measurements from those tanks. Like, he's stayed over the entire time he's been in the brewery. And at first they were like, well, I guess he's just here to make lagers, so whatever. But nope, it was perhaps more. But as you said, she's figured out, like, all right, these adjuncts might be the thing that maybe they can't touch them because it would destroy the goblin. Maybe Klaus brought the goblin with him. He said himself, like, it kind of shut the brewery down, and he was the last one to see it. So again, she's kind of acting on like puzzle pieces, adrenaline. I just had a weird beer with a goblin in my head, and who's now charging Klaus with a barley knife. Like, I need to do something, so let's throw everything down on adjuncts may hurt this thing. And maybe even, like, before she runs down the aisle, the cellar to open up all the tanks, like, as the goblin charges Klaus, maybe Klaus like backs up into like a bag of like cocoa powder or something, and it falls down towards the goblin, and it like stings the goblin's skin, and it's like sizzling. It's like, and Hope's like, oh my gosh, it's the adjuncts. So yeah, then she does what you just said, runs down, opens up the tanks, gets like, Klaus, run to me. And Klaus runs over in a very Lagerschtaan way. Imagine that how you
very
will.
Prancy, a little tartan capelet. I am running at full speed.
Right, and the goblin's chasing him like, like, we're so close, Klausy. Like, all you had to do was get me in the brew house, and it would all be mine. But Klaus runs for his freedom and gets hit by all this adjunct beer, and Klaus passes out, and the goblin's like, no, hits the goblin, and it evaporates into dust or a pile of hops or whatever happens to a cone goblin when it dies.
That's a good question for the Spotify poll. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a comment on what would happen when the cone goblin meets his demise.
Yes.
But I also want to say that as Klaus is running towards Hope, who's calling like, come here, I know the way to see, yada yada. Klaus trips over the freshly poured sludgy beers, falls, hits his head. The wave hits the cone goblin. Tom's calculating how much money he's losing in seconds. He might also disappear. So the cone goblin disappears, and the wave of these mixed beers floods past Tom and like kind of milks him back to life as it's flowing into his mouth, and it's Tom's like first taste of a super adjunct heavy, something like rare snack. beer that brings him back to life, and he's like, my God, this is perfection.
Yeah, so yeah, Klaus finally gets a taste of the crazy beer he's been poo-pooing, and maybe that brings him out of the trance. And so kind of what we learn as this is all happening is like, right, the goblin was attached to Klaus, kind of had Klaus maybe a little bit under his spell, and I don't know if we reveal this in the backstory that Klaus shares early, or maybe at the end of the film, but like maybe Klaus too was experimenting with like, I want to put the jalapeno in the Rausch beer. I want to do something.
Yes.
I hid it from my father and my mother, and I snuck in with the jalapeno, and I put it in the beer, and then the Cone Goblin show up next morning. So that's why he attracted the Cone Goblin originally. So he's also kind of curious about pushing the edge of what is acceptable beer, and really is like becomes a fan of American craft beer and stuff. But yeah, I think that's like an important part of the backstory, is that this frees Klaus from the spell of the goblin, and he can now kind of be himself, which is just like a curious brewer who was taught to turn his nose up to the crazy American beers, but really has been curious about them his whole life, and now is working at one of the coolest, hippest, haze craze brewing boys, whatever it's called, brewery, gets his first taste of some crazy adjunct beer as he's laying there watching this goblin spirit leave his body and evaporate into, again, whatever they turn into. A free mannequin.
Probably just turns into
a leprechaun that runs through a wall.
Yeah. Oi, Lassie, I'm out. And I also want to say that this leads us to a new path for GABF.
Yes.
Where they decide they're just going to can this beer and call it a trough mixed adjunct. And it takes gold for Milkshake IPA.
Yes.
Putting Haze Craze,
I love this,
back on the forefront of the hype brewing trend by introducing trough mixed beers.
Right. I love that. The curse is gone. They have gross beers that are winning a bunch of, well, they're not gross, they're good beers. They're not trying to be someone they're not. They're accepting that they make crazy hazy beers, and that's okay, and there's a place for them on the metal stand as well, and they're right. So yeah, they get to make the beers they actually want to make and actually want to drink. They get rewarded for it. Klaus is there doing what he wants to do, having wonderful adventures. And then it might be funny if like this is a quick postscript to the movie that's not that important, of like they're like, all right, so should we, like, I know maybe it's too soon, but do we need should we get a new brewery cat? And they're like, I haven't seen mice in forever, and they're maybe digging around in like the back closets where maybe like a goblin nest was, and the one benefit of the Cone Goblin is he ate like 5,000 mice. So it just ends with a mountain of mouse bones.
He's got like a goblin like some tower,
right?
Some sort of religious thing.
Yep, some creepy mouse bone tower. They're like, I guess you don't need a cat. So no cat needed. The brewery's in a good spot. They've won some medals. It's busy and full, and they're making the beer they want to make. But probably the last shot of the movie should be something with them like almost turning the lights off, and then seeing like a drip off one of the fermenters and running in with a sanitizer bottle, spraying it, wiping it down.
That's a great last shot.
Like looking around and making sure that they're good. And it couldn't even be, this is where we get to decide, like as she cleans that up, walks away, lights go out, and then one more drip still comes out, and you hear the hee, the laugh of the Cone Goblin again. So maybe the Cone Goblin returns if they don't get their cleaning in order, but they do, or maybe they don't.
I love the finish on the drip, and this time Hope addresses it. And I love the overall story. Being this is our most beer feature we've done yet, but the overall story could be that, you don't have to pick on a lager drinker or a New England drinker.
Right.
There's beer for everyone. Don't be a Cone Goblin. And if you expand that past beer, it works as well. Don't be a regular goblin.
Right.
Just don't yuck people's yum.
That's right. Don't yuck people's yums. Don't be the fun police. Plenty of room in the world for all kinds of goofy beers or goofy whatevers. You do you. Don't be a Cone Goblin. I like that. Don't be a Cone Goblin.
Perfect. There's another t-shirt we'll never make.
But laugh about forever.
For our 15th episode, Cone Goblin, let us know what you thought. Hit Harrison up on our social media. We'll see you next week with another Fast Five.
Ooh, until then,
peace.
Punch.
Give me the lunch.
Give me lunch now. Ooh, beer is lunch.